at Metropole TVKE across all your social media platforms. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. You are watching a Business AM this morning. This is your official economic review. Now, let me introduce the guest who joining us this morning to tackle this next issue. We're joined by Ali Hussein, CEO and founder. Kipochi is also a board member at Africa Fintech. Ali Hussein, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
Fantastic. Happy to have you around and welcome to Metropole Television. Let's introduce that story then. Safaricom has defended itself once again against accusations by rival Airtel Network Kenya Limited against accusations of abusing its market dominance and stifling competition in the telecommunications industry. Now, the country's leading telco told the Senate Standing Committee on Information and Technology that competition is healthy and that any other player can build its market share through increased investments and innovation. Safaricom's submission comes days after Airtel told the same committee that local regulators have been reluctant to declare the rival firm a dominant player despite having a market share of more than 50%, a threshold that has triggered such designations in other markets. In their submissions, the Competition Authority of Kenya has said that Safaricom's market share has declined in recent years and that competition remains healthy, a position that telco reiterated before the Senate committee. Airtel argued that declaring Safaricom a dominant player is the first step to addressing the perceived and even operating environment. The second largest telco also blamed the authority for what it considers tilted allocation of mobile spectrum in favor of Safaricom and failure to reduce the fees that the mobile phone operators charge each other for interconnecting calls. All right, just before we introduce Ali Hussein to the conversation, let's look at exactly where Safaricom is in terms of that performance. You can actually say that indeed all the way from 2018 to 2019, the service revenue has been declining. Let's move over to the next area as well this morning in terms of how Safaricom has performed. And if we look at where they are in terms of those highlights in the half year over 2021, what is important is their PAT that is now at a 33.1 billion. That's huge, really. That's profit after tax. All right, let's move on to the last one this morning in terms of that service revenue trend. And all the way from 2018 to 2021 financial year, service revenue trend has been increasing and most importantly, propped up by Pesa. Fantastic. Ali, that indeed Safaricom is a dominant player, but we are not calling them dominant.
So, Simba, let me just ask you first a question. Why has it been that this term dominant has become an abuse? Let's step back a bit and let's look at a little bit of history.
Yes.
10, 12 years ago, Safaricom and the then, I think it was called Cancel then. I mean, they have changed hands. Airtel, until it became Airtel, probably changed hands twice.
Yes.
They were on par in market share, both on voice and there was hardly any mobile money.
Yes.
So let's ask ourselves what happened to this point. Was Safaricom favored by the regulator to get to a point where they have this sort of huge market share? I don't think so. So let's now fast forward to today, where Safaricom has an assailing market share. And notice that I'm not using the term dominant because it has been misused. It used to be that when you gained market share and became, the top dog in your industry, it used to be a good thing.
Yes.
It used to be something that we celebrate. Not anymore. And there is a reason for that. The reason comes from the historical issues related to big tech and what we now know as market-given monopolies. Remember, in the earlier days, we had government-given monopolies. In Kenya, if you are old enough, you will probably remember the Kenya Post and Telecommunications Corporation.
Yes.
Which was then broken down into a number of organizations towards what we called the liberalization of the telecommunications sector. It was broken down into a number of organizations that included Safaricom, the Telecom Kenya as we know it today, yes, and the Communications Authority. Now, how did Safaricom get to the point of where they are today? People call it dominant, like it's a bad word. Mishaps, strategic decisions that they made and executed better than their rivals. Those are the facts.
Yes.
We can't get away from those facts.
Yes.
My apologies.
Pretty much. Ali, if you're still with me, let's go back a bit again and then ask ourselves the questions. Yes, we might call them the dominant player. It's in the abstract sense of being the dominant player. When you have a market share of 90%, even on M-Pesa transactions alone, it would be proper business-wise and abstract business terms for me to say, in this industry, you are the dominant player. Is that what we're running away from, though, Ali?
So Siba, I'm glad you brought up the mobile money conversation. You are absolutely correct when you say that Safaricom has 98.5% market share when it comes to mobile money.
Yes.
But I think let's put it in context. And what's the context that people don't want to talk about? And
yes.
I'm not here to defend Safaricom. I think Safaricom has their issues that must be addressed from a regulatory perspective. But this particular issue
yes.
is we want government, the players in the sector, instead of being innovative, are going saidia serikali. Saidia serikali. So let's look at the market of mobile money. I'm not sure whether you are aware of this, but 85% of transactions in Kenya still remain in cash. 85% still remain in cash. All right? So that 98.5% you're talking about is 98.5% of 15%. So let me ask you this question, Simba. Why isn't everybody else going for the 85%? Everybody wants a part of the 15% that Safaricom built. What's going on? As my young adult son say, WTF that? What's going on? Why can we not focus and ask ourselves as a country and as a regulator and as an industry, why can we not open up the 85% that is still not in the mobile money and digital money ecosystem? No, we're busy fighting for the 15%. What's going on?
So, Ali,
and by the way, Simba, let me just call out the regulator on this one.
Yes.
Let me just call out the regulator for free.
Yes.
Let the regulator ask the hard questions about the 85% that is not in the digital money ecosystem.
Yes.
Why? Are we together?
We are together, Ali.
I think we are asking the wrong questions.
Here's the question.
We are dealing with the wrong issues.
Ali, let me ask the question that every other person in the country we want to ask you this morning, Ali. Fine. I'm not disputing the fact that you're saying, well, we cannot punish success. And in business terms, we should not punish success. Fine. But if you're successful to the point that you're holding 98% of a certain percentage of money transactions in the country, then the question should be, is it all right that we are letting new tech dominance in that area without saying, is there any other player who can be propped up now, despite your success?
Simba, you've not heard what I just said. Why are we focusing on the 15%? Why? There is 85% of transactions in this country that are still in cash. The enemy is not Safaricom or M-Pesa. The enemy is cash. The enemy is cash. Let's talk about that for 1 minute. Why is it that the industry and the regulator is not dealing, and by the way, these numbers is not that I am the one who came up with these numbers. These numbers are corrected by Central Bank of Kenya statistics.
Yes.
So here's my take. One of the things that the Central Bank of Kenya did during the pandemic is to zero rate mobile money transactions and mobile banking transactions.
Yes.
Do you know when that happened? The growth was phenomenal. So you may want to say, oh, you know, the CBK is using private capital as a regulatory tool. But what I want to say is that in that particular time, in times of immense problems in government, in the country, regulators and policymakers must use all the tools at their disposal to do right for the country and for the industry.
Yes.
It is time that this country and everybody else stops making M-Pesa and Safaricom a pastime as a punching bag. And it is time that we ask ourselves as a country, what can be done to open up the 85%? My brother, let me just say this. Let me just give you some interesting statistics. And these are World Bank statistics. 1 in every 10 human beings using mobile money regularly in the world today is a Kenyan. Let me repeat that for emphasis. 1 in every 10 human beings in the world using mobile money regularly is a Kenyan. Just step back one bit and tafakari that statistic. We are 50 million Kenyans. The world is 7 billion people, yet 10% of all mobile money transactions in the world are done by Kenyans. Isn't that reason enough to look at this sector a little bit more differently and expand it not to just mobile money, but the whole digital money, digital banking, financial inclusion conversation? Isn't that reason enough? Now, let me give you another interesting fact of this country today. The Kenya Bankers Association owns a company called IPSL,
yes.
Integrated Payment Services Limited.
Yes.
Have you used PesaLink before?
Yes, I have.
Do you think PesaLink is a potential competitor to Safaricom's M-Pesa?
It actually is a potential competitor, yes.
Now, let me ask you this question.
Yes.
PesaLink is owned by bankers.
Yes.
When was the last time you used your mobile banking platform? Whichever bank you use. Do you see M-Pesa there as a key offering? Today, it is easier to transact via mobile money and Pesa than it is to transact from your mobile banking app. Matter of fact, so you have another sector that finds itself in a situation where they have a platform that can be a good bulwark for the so-called M-Pesa dominance.
Yes.
But they are giving, as we say in Kiswahili, wanaipea M-Pesa kipawa mbele. Who is to blame? Who is to blame? What is the reason for that? The reason is very simple. It's an issue of user experience. It's an issue of M-Pesa basically executing better than anybody else. Now, last time I checked, executing better than your competition is not reason enough to get the regulator involved to intervene. It is like two soccer teams playing. One of them is being thwacked properly, and the other team is saying, referee, hebu tusaidie baba. Huyu jamaa anatuchapa sana. Okay, so let's stop there 1 minute and let's ask ourselves that allocation of spectrum.
Yes.
And let me ask everyone a simple, honest question that they must answer me.
Yes.
If you are given 100 megahertz of spectrum allocation, does that mean you will execute better than your competitor?
It doesn't mean that.
So why are we harping on that issue? Why do we continue giving examples that make no sense? Because these spectrums,
yes,
in my layman's language, because I would not claim to be a telecom expert,
yes,
and I stand corrected, but in my layman's language, as you grow your market share, you need more spectrum. Is that correct?
Yes.
It is like the bigger you become, the larger the size of the shot you require.
Yes.
Is that a crime?
It's not a crime. Are you also avoiding to say then that the larger the market share, in quote unquote terms, the more dominant you become, Ali? Is that what other players are looking at and saying, well?
Okay. So let me answer that question in a different way, if
yes,
you'll allow me.
Yes.
The regulators require a certain level of quality of service.
Yes.
Dropped calls, the number of transactions you can do on a mobile money platform, and so on and so forth, right?
Yes.
Now, if the regulator requires a certain level of quality of service, and it does not allocate you the pipes to be able to execute that quality of service, who is to blame?
It's regulator.
Will it be the telco company, or will it be the regulator?
It will be the regulator in that sense.
Okay. So if we look at the spectrum in relation to Safaricom and Airtel and the others, at what point did the regulators start favoring Safaricom? At what point? Let us be honest when we put our arguments in front of the august house.
Yes.
And let us not misrepresent facts. And that's why I started my conversation with a bit of history. All right? Now, having said that,
yes,
one thing that I would agree with Airtel is around the cost of interchange services. Please, just give me a second. There's a bit of noise coming.
Yes, we're still on with this conversation on Airtel accusing Safaricom of abusing its market dominance. We have a bit of technical interference from Ali's side. Remember, we are speaking to Ali Hussein. fantastic. Ali, you're back, aren't you?
This is the time my gardener decides he wants to cut the grass.
It's allowed. We have 5 minutes to go anyway. We're going to give him that time.
So really, the point here is, at what point did this dominance issue become a real issue?
Yes.
You know, we learn from history that we never learn from history, right? So when we are presenting facts, let us be honest about these facts.
Yes.
And let us say we represent this case. This is where we went wrong. However, we have reached a point where the whole industry is becoming detrimental because of certain activities of a so-called dominant player.
Yes.
So let's ask ourselves a number of questions, and let us be very honest about it. These interconnection fees, last time they were looked at was what, 5-7 years ago? I don't have the actual number.
Yes.
Is it time to relook at them? Maybe. Maybe it's time to relook at them, but I'm not so sure it will help the industry. Why am I saying this? Remember when number portability was a big issue? And everybody talked about number portability as being the panacea for dominance?
Yes.
It will kill the dominant conversation. How many years since number portability? 5, 10?
It should be around 6 or 8 thereof. Yes.
Did it solve the problem of so-called dominance?
Pretty much no.
Okay, so let's look at the other issue around what we call network effects. And network effects simply means, in telecom parlance, that the more people are in one network,
yes,
the more valuable that network becomes. Okay? So I'll give you an example. A few years back, when number portability was launched, my dad asked me, I'm going to move to Airtel. Then I asked him, where am I going to be sending Pesa to? And that gave him pause. That's an issue that needs to be addressed. My humble opinion, though,
yes,
is that is something that the regulator and the industry needs to work together. Why am I saying that? Mobile money has become the new rails of financial services. And when I talk about rails for the normal Kenyan mwananchi, let me just explain. Rails in financial services simply means that if I make a transaction, a digital transaction using card, using mobile money, it uses certain pipes to transact, to send it to Bwana Simba in his bank account, or to send it to Bwana Simba in his mobile money account.
Yes.
That issue needs to be addressed. How do we, and I don't have all the answers here, right? But how do we ensure the continued health of our financial services by making interoperability seamless? Now, interoperability in some cases is being used as a weapon against competitors.
Yes.
In my humble opinion, it's a very myopic way of looking at competition. All you need to do is look at the global payments ecosystem to see what I mean. Visa and MasterCard today are probably the largest payment platforms in the world.
Yes.
But they're not dominant, by the way. They're dominant in the card space. But in Kenya, cards only have a 2% market share in payments. Only 2% market share in payments. In other countries, that's a lot larger, of course. But that means that the payments ecosystem worldwide is very fragmented. and there's no dominant player per se.
Yes.
That should be the same in the country. But in the sense that what Safaricom is doing now with the creation of M-Pesa Africa is moving towards M-Pesa becoming independent so that they can engage with other players, including in the telecom space. And that's the way it should be. And that's the nudge without a push that regulators need to do, to have honest-to-God conversations with players in the industries that they regulate and police. One last thing. When we are coming back to Kenya specific, when we are talking about interconnection fees, I think this is a conversation that the industry needs to have.
Yes.
Hands down. They need to have that conversation, because even though Safaricom has 64% market share, the network effect on that network effect has become so pervasive that even though I have Airtel account, I will also have a mobile money account via M-Pesa.
Yes.
But let's look at the mobile money sector, and let us look at the investment that Safaricom has made with M-Pesa, and let's look at the mobile money investment that Airtel has made. Now, I'm talking as a practitioner in the fintech space. I'm talking as a Kenyan who's using mobile money every day. I'm talking as a practitioner whose company integrates different mobile money and payment systems for his customers. Safaricom has an easy-to-use API platform. API simply means a platform where different systems can speak to each other seamlessly. All right? Does Airtel Money have that platform? No, it does not. So when we sit here and Airtel complains about the M-Pesa dominance, and yet they are not investing the same amount of money that M-Pesa is doing, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? It is like Kenyans love Premier League, right? It's like one Premier League team is exercising every day, doing practice and investing in the best players. One is doing nothing, and then they are complaining that the ref is biased against them. Let's be honest about these issues, and let the regulator do the work the role that they have been given by the people of Kenya. Do it right, but let us not ask the regulator to intervene in a market that one player is not investing enough, the other player is investing more. And even having said that, we still have 85% of transactions that are still in cash. Do you feel me, guys?
Ali Hussein, CEO and co-founder Kipochi, board member Africa Fintech. Thank you very much, sir, for taking your time this morning to speak to us here at Metropole Television.
It has been my pleasure, Simba. Asante sana.
Thank you very much. All right. And that's the way it is. That's exactly what we have for you here this morning. Now, that conversation for Airtel and Telkom complaining about the market dominance for Safaricom and how the regulator should do something about it. Speaking this morning, Ali Hussein, CEO, co-founder Kipochi, board member, Africa Fintech. Take him online back to the time that he came into the studio at Metropole TVKE across all your social media platforms. #BusinessAM. Good morning.